to look at history, ourselves, Spiral Arc and Harif, are going many, many years back, where we have had a lot of interesting programs together until Lyn came to the surface and to this on the stage. We did mainly Jewish history from the east, from basically Europe and maybe America, maybe South Africa, but we never touched something that we didn't know enough. And I think that Lyn, as we all know, have opened up a whole branch of knowledge that Jews weren't aware of. To give you a little example, we had people who registered for this event through us, and some people said Jews had to left Morocco. We thought that they had it so good there that all of them stayed there. So I think our ignorance as far as the Jews of the North Africa and Arab countries is so limited. And we all have to thank Lyn and her initiative for opening up this world before us. And I'm glad that more and more Ashkenazim are coming to our joint meetings and are fascinated by what Lyn has to send us. I said before about the benefit of Corona. We only hear about the horrible things, and obviously they are horrible. But I think that the idea that we can sit with people from California and Spain or wherever and experience an intellectual and learning experience is something so incredible that it's really breathtaking. And so this is a real fantastic thing for us. And I have to say that both the Spiral Arc and Harif are not ever defeated by anything. So whenever there is difficulty, we are looking at it only as an obstacle, and we are trying to overcome it. And I think that maybe women are more overcomable than men, although Lawrence is a different species.
And Robin.
And Robin, yes. But I think that I meet a lot of women, and I can see that the energy and the feel that they are here on earth in order to do something worthwhile is very special. So I know that this evening is a fantastic opportunity for us. And if you haven't yet read Uprooted, which has become an international bestseller of Lyn, please do so, because it is opening a world of knowledge which we all so need. And if you need an improvement on your Hebrew, Spiral Arc is happy to do it even on Zoom. Lyn, thank you so much for what you are and what you do, and Lawrence for being such a support for both us and Harif. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nitza, for that wonderful introduction. I don't think Spiral Arc needs much introduction to those of us in the UK. It is the pioneering institute for Jewish learning and education. And I certainly can't match what you do or what you have done in the past decades. It is a great pleasure to be here and to welcome you all. We have 100 people participating in this Zoom talk, and it is extremely exciting to know that you come from all over the world, from Spain, from Israel, from Canada, from America, and of course from the UK. I just need to explain to you what's going to happen. I'm going to present my PowerPoint to you, and then when I've finished, there'll be an opportunity for questions. The best thing to do is to click on the icon which says chat and just write your question in. So the subject of my talk tonight is, why did the Jews of Morocco leave? It may be a strange question to ask, but it is slightly controversial because there does seem to be a lot of ambivalence over the reasons why they left. And just to give you some figures, in 1948, there was a population of 265,000 Jews. Today, there are only 2,500, mostly living in Casablanca. And Morocco had the largest Jewish community in the Arab world. So obviously we need to know exactly why and how they left. Now, one thing is certain, and that is they were not expelled overnight, like the Iraqi Jews, for instance, or the Egyptian Jews after Suez in 1956, or the Yemenites in 1949. They did not leave en masse like the Libyan Jews after 1948, or the Syrian Jews in 1948. And their exodus was really spread out over quite a long period, about 30 years, in fact. Another difference between Morocco and the other Arab countries is that they weren't subject to quite the same state-sanctioned laws that affected communities in other countries. For instance, their property was not confiscated, although plenty of Moroccan Jews actually did lose their property. They were not stripped of their passports, that's if they had them. And so this was a slightly different situation from other communities. In the early 1950s, when absorbing Jewish refugees from Arab lands, Israel did not actually give priority to the Moroccan Jews. Morocco was then under the French protectorate. They had suffered a pogrom at Oujda and Gerada in 1948, and in fact 48 Jews were killed in that massacre. But this wasn't enough for Israel to give them priority. Israel did not consider they were in as urgent need as other Middle Eastern communities. And Israel actually operated a selection process, giving priority to the young and able-bodied Moroccan Jews. So many Jews, you hear, may say that they left Morocco out of Zionism. And it is true that the Moroccan Jewish community was a very pious one, a very traditional one, and they hankered for Jerusalem. They thought of themselves in exile in Morocco, and they did have this age-old yearning to go back to the Holy Land. But was that enough of a reason to leave Morocco? You might also have heard it say that the Zionists made them leave. And this suggests that they left reluctantly and against their will. So let's answer the question I've posed: why did the Jews of Morocco leave? And to do so, I think we need to go back in history and start at the very beginning. So the Jewish community of Morocco is a very old community. It goes back at least 2,000 years to Phoenician and Roman times, or even before. The original community was called the Toshavim. Basically, Morocco was composed of Jews, of Berbers. Christianity came along, and most of the Berbers converted to Christianity. And there were also pagans who really had no real religion. So this was the situation before the Arab conquest in the 7th century. the Arabs came, they converted the population, much of the population, to Islam. A lot of the Berbers became Islamized, and obviously some Jews converted to Islam as well. They had their ups and downs over history. After the 1492 Spanish Inquisition, the Jewish community of Toshavim were joined by the Megorashim, who reinvigorated Moroccan Judaism. And these were basically Jews of Spanish culture, and they brought with them their Spanish languages, and they provided a sort of intellectual boost to Moroccan Judaism. So this synagogue you see here, the Beth El Synagogue of Casablanca, really symbolizes the rich Jewish heritage of Morocco. Morocco has actually spent a lot of money restoring synagogues, preserving cemeteries, restoring Jewish quarters. And it does this because actually, unlike other Arab countries, many Arab countries, Morocco does not try to erase its Jewish heritage. On the contrary, it is quite a selling point. And it's obviously a selling point because it attracts many tourists, and tourism is the second biggest currency earner. And thousands of tourists visit every year, including many Moroccan Israelis looking for their roots. So Morocco acknowledges its debt to Jewish and Berber culture, and in fact, their contribution is enshrined in the constitution that it passed in 2011. And this is something unique amongst Arab countries. Because the Jews were there for such a very long time and predated Islam, there is a sort of cultural symbiosis there, which mustn't be confused with coexistence. A cultural symbiosis signifying that Jews and Muslims really share a lot of the same culture. For instance, there's something really unusual about Morocco, and they have many saints' tombs, famous rabbis who are buried, and Jews and Muslims pray at these tombs. Jews go on Hilula, on yearly pilgrimage to these saints' tombs, and this is again something unusual. Morocco is also unusual because it still maintains links with its Jews who can visit Morocco, and this is really quite unusual. An Iraqi Jew, for instance, can't go back to Iraq unless he risks his life. Jews who try to go back to Libya, same thing, can't really go back there. And another difference is that Morocco still has a king, whereas most Arab countries have suffered army coups and revolutions. And Morocco has escaped this fate. And the king assures a degree of stability and continuity. And the Jews are uniquely loyal to the king, and he in turn seems loyal to them. Although it has to be said throughout history, not all rulers were good to the Jews. Some were extremely cruel and intolerant. But historically, the monarch has benefited from Jewish courtiers, Jewish advisors, and merchants, and they were the monarch's link to the outside world. On the other hand, Morocco, I think, is guilty of really a great deal of popular anti-Semitism. For instance, the word Jew was an insult and was often accompanied by the word in Arabic hashak, which basically means, excuse my French. You know, when I say Jew, I didn't mean to insult you. And from a very early stage, in fact, from about the 15th century, Jews actually not only lived in a Jewish quarter, but they lived in a Jewish mellah. And a mellah was a walled ghetto, really. This is the Marrakesh ghetto dating back to 1558. It had one entrance, which was fortified, and the Jews were actually locked into this area, into this mellah. There was only one entrance, and they were locked into this, this quarter for their own protection and their own safety. So you may well ask, why did they need to be protected, and protected against who? And the reality was that there were frequent attacks on the Jewish mellah,